Okay, what's up, guys? This is the Beef Boys YouTube channel. This YouTube channel is going to feature a podcast in the works and little videos about conspiracies, historical events, anything that interests the brain. So, today we are going to talk about a little known incident in history, and this is more on the creepier, unsolved mystery kind of side, and that was the Dyatlov Pass Incident. Now, what was this Dyatlov Pass Incident? Well, it occurred in 1959 in the former Soviet Union. It was a mountain range in the Ural Mountains where 9 experienced hikers went missing and were found dead. Their deaths were very suspicious as it seemed as if they were trying to get away from something, not an animal or a person, but some type of weird, I don't know. We'll get into it right now, though. So what it is basically picture this: February 1959. It's a cold winter in Russia. Now, these originally the group was 10 people, but on January 28th, 1959, one of the hikers got sick and left the group. So this group consisted of hikers from a college. They were all colleagues, mostly young 20s. There was one guy 38, but for the most part, they were all young people. And they were experienced. This was not their first time hiking anywhere. This was their first time hiking in that region, but they were already used to hiking by then. They did not hear from the 9 others in the group for about 20 days. So, the families of these 9 hikers, young college students, decided to ask authorities if they could please investigate or look into the disappearance of them. Hopefully, they're all right. Who knows what happened to them? Some closure. So, authorities go out, look for these hikers on February 20th, 1959. 6 days later, on the 26th, they found the campsite of the hikers. The tent was badly damaged. And the weird part about this is the tent was ripped open from the inside out. It was not as if someone broke into the tent. It was as if they tried to get out of the tent in a rush. 9 barefoot footprints were found near the tent. This is significant because inside the tent was socks and other clothing articles, which is kind of weird because at this time it might have been very cold. Now we know that around this time it was about negative 40 degrees Fahrenheit. So to leave the tent barefoot was very strange, but we'll keep going. So authorities looked around the campfire, but they like around the campsite, but snow covered everything else, so they were only able to find 9 footprints. So they go down from the campsite down along this pass, and later down the path they find a makeshift campfire, and that is where they find the first 2 bodies. Now the first 2 bodies were barefoot and in their underwear. Also kind of strange, but nonetheless the authorities don't find anything else around there, only the 2 bodies. So they go back up to the campsite. While they go back up to the campsite, I guess they took a different route or something, but in between the campfire and the campsite, they find 3 more bodies. Now, these 3 bodies were laying in a position and posing in a position that showed that they were making their way back to the campsite. As for the rest of the 4 hikers who were missing, it took authorities 2 months to locate their bodies because of the weather conditions. Now, they were found on May 4th, 1959, much further down the path. 3 out of the 4 had more clothing article than the fourth one. It suggests that the one who died first gave his clothes to the other ones, most likely because to stay warm, obviously. Now, these are the official conclusions, what authorities found. 3 of the hikers had fatal injuries. No indication that someone came to them to kill them. There was no evidence of anyone leaving any footprints from far away that led to the path. No evidence that suggests that anyone else was involved in this death. Um, they did conclude that the tent was ripped open from the inside out, and they concluded that from the autopsy that the victims died 6 to 8 hours after eating their last meal. evidence suggests that at the campsite, the hikers left on their own accord. No one forced them out. They were generally either spooked or curious to leave the campsite. High levels of radiation were found on one clothing article, but other than that, no radiation was found or anything else. They did not release an autopsy about the condition of the internal organs, other than the brain, which we'll get into right now, and some leg injury that one of them sustained. None of the 9 hikers survived. Now, what is interesting is 2 had chest trauma, which means that inside their chest was badly damaged. 2 had missing eyes, so 2 of these people had their eyes gone, and 2 had skull injuries. Now, they conclude that this was a concussion because the tissue outside of the skull was not damaged. It was just the brain. If you know what a concussion is, you hit your head really hard, the brain bounces back and forth inside the skull, it starts to bleed and swell. Concussion. You can die from that. So, yeah, the case was dropped in 1959 because no guilty party could be charged. They said there was no one that could have murdered these people. Now, the case was reopened 60 years later in 2019, but only 3 explanations were being accepted at the time. It was either an avalanche, a partial snow slab avalanche, or a hurricane. So, for the most part, history has accepted that these people died from hypothermia and an avalanche. That is what history suggests. But the strange part is that about the condition of the bodies, why were some with their eyes out? Why? I mean, it's understandable if it's an avalanche, chest trauma, a concussion, but it is very strange as they left the campsite without clothes. Maybe they were spooked from the sound of the avalanche and they just left, bailed out, and the ones who survived the avalanche just died of hypothermia. Others suggest that, well, you have the conspiracy theorists that suggest that it was the Russian Yeti, which I'm really not buying because I do like conspiracies, but I really don't believe that a Yeti exists. I do think that is ridiculous. Another suggests that the possible cause was a military test because it was known that the military was doing tests in that region. They do that because they suggest that because the clothing article had some traces of radiation, but not much is known from that because nothing else was released on that. But what they do think it might have been was these testings of Russian parachute mines, which basically parachuted down from an airplane, exploded. An explosion would have caused concussions. They think that some people think that they heard the explosions from far away. It spooked them. They went outside the tent. The explosions landed by the tent, gave them concussions, the badly damaged chest, the blown out eyes. That's one of the theories that predicts what may have happened to them. There is also people who believe that they were attacked by an animal, although this is unlikely because an animal would have done a lot more damage. I don't know if you've seen pictures of bear attacks, but bears will fuck you up. Like they will tear your face off. They will like half eat you, and it'll look like you were attacked by something. But these people didn't look like they were really attacked by something. Um, we may never really know what happened to these people because the theory of avalanche has been so widely accepted. Maybe it was an avalanche, who knows? Like I said, guys, this is just a historical discussion of an event that maybe many of you have not heard of. I'm not saying that it was UFOs or that it was Bigfoot or anything like that. I'm just saying it is a little weird to think of that. And the part that kind of gives me like the strange nod face is the fact that the conclusion by the government at the time in Russia said that these hikers were, quote, killed by an unknown compelling force. What does that mean? No idea. So if you have any theory of your own, or you were spooked by this, comment, leave a like, and stay tuned for more videos from us.